Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here representing Jason Blaha Strength and Fitness, and today I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about kind of my take on lower carbs based on my personal experience versus the evidence. But a quick reminder, if you guys will please click like down below, it'd be greatly appreciated. If you're not subscribed or following, please do so, and if you'll be kind enough to drop me a comment down below, I would greatly appreciate it. Okay, this is one of these things to where it's always interesting because I tend to be generally opposed to really low carb diets. I'm not saying always, I think they can still have uses, and I promote high carb, even though people are like, didn't you lose weight before on keto at one point? Haven't you been used low carbs even for bulking in the past? And I think that's a great point, and this is one of the things I will point out. I am one of those people who actually can thrive on a keto diet, like emotionally, mentally, mental clarity. So ironically, I'm one of the people who actually does pretty good on it. And yet I'm standing here still telling people, if you want maximum performance, right, you want the most work capacity, you really need to build your diet around significant amount of carbohydrates. If your goal is to, again, have the best health, lowest cardiovascular disease, you got to limit saturated fat. And that means some of these high saturated fat, low carb diets are not going to work. And the evidence for this, even in keto populations, is very strong at this point. So let me be clear. The other thing is, I've shown stuff as of different points where I'm definitely leaner now on higher carb than I was doing keto. I think people forget I'm one of the guys who bulk on keto. I have no trouble gaining body weight or gaining body fat on a high-fat ketogenic diet. And it's ironic because every time I've done them, like even the body fat I have now, in terms of still there because I'd gained some fat, just early in the year, I was doing a low carb again, and I was getting hungrier and hungrier and adding more fat in, and I didn't realize because I didn't put any water weight on that I had gained body fat, and I probably gained 10 pounds of fat, right? And then I went on lower fat, more carbohydrate, and I've been burning it off during getting leaner and leaner now. And again, I'm not bodybuilder lean by any means, but I've also been well over 300 pounds before. So the ironic part when this comes up, I've had people say, well, you're not ripped, and so how can you say this works? I'm like, but I'm leaner now than when I do lower carbs. Even when I do some of those before and afters, and I was actually quite carrying a lot of muscle, when people are like, yeah, you're definitely leaner now, but I think your arms were a bit bigger then, even at the higher body fat. I was a low carb guy back then. Okay? Again, people forget I lived on pounds of red meat and lower carbs and lots of vegetables and stuff at that time. Okay, I ran a really meat heavy low carb diet, yet I'm leaner now. The thing though that I'm gonna say, that I will say, the only time I am ever able to really do the low carb approach, I have to run lower training volumes all the time, and I can't do huge amounts of cardio and other stuff. That's the other thing that gets me with it. So from a performance perspective, even though I feel mentally good, and I feel pretty good on ketogenic diets, I tend to have fairly good blood work, other than my LDL will tend to start going up, which is a concern. All in all, I'm one of the people who does pretty good on it. I keto adapt really well. I get fat adapted really well. Okay. I don't have a lot of the problems that people do have. So for me, and I've spent quite a few years in the past on keto diets. I've used them during some of my original different points of fat loss because I lost 150 pounds and younger. I got sick, spent a year in bed, gained 100 pounds. I lost about 50 of it on a keto diet again. So the thing is, the longer I do this though, especially if I want to do fair amount of training volume, if I want to do a lot of cardio, like at the time I'm making this video, I'm running 30 minutes to an hour a day. I'm training full body workouts 3 days a week with squat, bench, and deadlift in them. Then I'm doing list cardio on my bike. I've been doing sled stuff off and all this other stuff. Like I'm doing large amounts of training volume. I can't do that on a lower carb approach. I have to have carbohydrate, and I think that's true of everybody. The data on these diets does show that your work capacity, even cardiovascularly, will go down. Okay, you're not going to be able to put in the same work. right? You're not going to be able to put in the same work. The one thing I will say though, I tend to look leaner when I go low carbs. Like right now, how I look in this video, if I were to jump into a deep ketogenic diet, I would probably drop 10 to 12 pounds of water. My waistline would tighten up. People are like, oh my God, did you go on trend? I'd be like, no, I just cut all my carbs out. So there is that, but I think the thing is because I'm also not super lean. I know a lot of guys are the opposite. They get really flat when they're super lean. They just get flat when they do that. Whereas when they carb up, they really look good. Okay, so there's the difference though when you're at more of that body fat still in the teens. You're anywhere in that 12 up to about 18 to 20%. It's way different with that. If you're in there like I am and you're carved up, you may not look as lean as when you drop the carbs. But the other thing that we have to think about, and this was kind of definitely the death blow for me of why I'll never do the high saturated fat type keto again. I was using a lot of dairy fat in whole Greek yogurt though, and then ultra filtered whole milk, so it was very low carb. When I did gain some of that fat again, on a lower carb, again, a little more benign because you're dealing with whole food dairy. Doesn't have the same LDL hit, but still we have to factor all that in, the LDL-C, right? We looked at that study done, that pro-keto study done on metabolically healthy, right? Metabolically healthy men who were at a healthy body fat and a healthy body weight, okay, with no signs of diabetes or insulin resistance, and they all gained on a keto diet with their LDL elevated. On a high saturated fat keto, they all accumulated really large amounts of arterial plaque. And then the researchers being pro-keto tried to hide that data till they were forced to reveal the actual data showing those measurements. So what does this tell us? That sort of diet isn't appropriate. It's not going to be appropriate for long-term health. And and I would say for someone like me, even if I look leaner, a lot leaner really when I do that. You guys have seen the water cuts I did on low carbs for meats where I'm like literally shredded and covered in veins for just half a day. Right, that's all nearly zero carbohydrate. Also, when I've done that, even though I might look a little leaner, it's not worth the health hit. For me personally, and I would say that for a lot of people. So this is why for me, I don't advocate this sort of diet, even though I personally tend to feel pretty good when I've done it, and I tend to look leaner and better when I do that sort of diet. Like people would say it's noticeably so too. Work capacity goes down, the atherosclerosis can accumulate, the LDL can get out of control. It's just not ideal. And so therefore I'm not a fan of this sort of diet, even though I personally feel like I can thrive on that sort of diet and not everybody can. I still don't do it, and I don't really advocate for it.